I'm also going to do an AI summary. I don't know if any of you have seen that yet, but it's like it takes like a secretary, and it'll take minutes
Oh, neat.
and give us the summary of. So I'll capture all your questions, which will be nice. So that'll help me in the future with our frequently asked questions. Welcome, Peg. Welcome, Craig.
Hi, Leah. Again.
Gosh, y'all are experts. I might turn it over to you.
No, don't do that.
Well, for this session this evening, I am a facilitator. I will say I am not an expert as a club secretary or a club treasurer, but this is our beginning. If someone has a question and I can't answer it and one of you have an answer, I hope you will pipe up and we can discuss it. And if I don't have the answer, I will certainly get the answer. And perhaps even Craig will help me with the answer. But I am going to share my screen. This is a, hold on one second. Okay, so let me start my screen. Welcome, everybody. Share. I have made a small PowerPoint here so that we keep myself on track. Can everyone see it's a Secretary Treasurer Trading? Yes. Make it a little bigger here. Okay. So first, this is what we're going to be covering this evening. It is a shorter training. We're going to cover what I am planning to talk about and what I'm not planning to talk about. I'd like to open it for discussion on us having a quarterly session. I have a door prize because I feel like if you are coming and giving me your time for our live event instead of the recording, you certainly do deserve a chance at a door prize. We're going to have an overview of all the resources available. And then I thought we would go through the treasurer's info first and then move into the secretary's info. So if anyone here that's just the treasurer and not a secretary treasurer, they won't have to stay for the second part of the session. And then if you're a secretary treasurer, you can get both information. So what will this session cover? This session is going to cover our district information specifically relating to North and South Carolina and questions around things you have problems with as a secretary or treasurer. What it's not going to cover is a Kiwanis 101 orientation. So I'm not going to go through the structure of Kiwanis and what our leadership is. That is always available to you online at Kiwanis.org, and I'm going to show you the exact link that you can use for that. So if you are someone new, totally new to Kiwanis and totally new to this position as the Secretary Treasurer, you can find that 20-minute presentation readily available to you in both the Treasurer's recording and the Secretary's recording done by Kiwanis International. So I want to open it up to engage you. A few years ago, I opened up having a monthly session available at lunchtime to the presidents and the secretaries separately. And it worked well in the beginning, but then it died off and only one or two people would come. So what I thought we would do is instead have a quarterly session at 7 p.m. January, April, July, and late September to cover the areas that focus on those upcoming 3 months. So for example, January could cover submitting the 990 and submitting the information to the Secretary of State for both North and South Carolina, and anything else that might be going on that a secretary might need to submit in January through March. And then the same thing would happen for each of the other quarters. So when I'm going to stop my share, and so I can see all of y'all and open it up for discussion. Is that something you would like to do? And are there any specific dates that you would be a priority for you during those times, or your club?
I'll break the silence only to suggest, Leah, that the September one, instead of being late September, might be a little earlier in September, just because it's the end of the Kiwanis year. And there's some things that we have to do before we meet all those reporting deadlines that start in early October.
I hear you, Greg. And if we can find some other volunteers to handle this, I would do that. I cannot do early September, coming 2 weeks off the district convention. It's just physically impossible for me. So if we have I do have someone willing to help with the secretary's portion. So if we can find both the secretary and treasurer that could lead a session for North and South Carolina, we would definitely move it earlier in September. What about the rest of you? Oh, I can't hear you, man.
I would say, Leah, that I haven't been a secretary in 20 years. And so while I'm very familiar with Kiwanis, I'm not familiar with those secretarial roles. So I think the quarterly sessions would be good. I don't have a specific time. Wednesday night on 7 o'clock is a particularly bad time for me, because I have a normal commitment that I'm missing tonight in order to do this webinar. But
so would a Tuesday at 7 work better for you? Tuesdays and Wednesdays are generally when we get the highest attendance at webinars. So that's why we choose. And 7, anytime when we go to 8, the early to bed people don't want to stay on. And when we do 6, people are complaining that it's too early for dinner because they couldn't get their dinner.
Right.
So if you had to choose between a Tuesday and a Wednesday, which would you prefer?
Wednesday.
I probably would prefer Wednesday, because Tuesday is also a busy time for me. But you're only talking about once a quarter anyway. So.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, if the date doesn't work for you, these will be recorded, so you could watch them. The ones I did previously, I didn't record because I wanted it to be a safe space for anyone that might be having crisis situations in their club. But we're going to plan to have this one for president. The whole quarter piece will not be just secretaries, treasurers. It'll be for presidents as well, so that we have the entire group, so everyone can hear the answers to the question, because I like to promote that in Kiwanis, we work as a team. We don't want to silo ourselves. So hopefully everyone can learn what everyone else's job is, so that if something happens to someone else can take over.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have any other comments or think of something later, feel free to drop it in the chat. I will be looking at that later as I set up that Q2 date. And one of my goals is to have all the webinars set as much as possible for the entire year in the next month. So once I set those dates, you will have them for the full year out, so you can go ahead and pencil them into your calendar now. Let me share my screen again. So it's door prize time. So the door prize this time will be one of the new district padfolios. It's a nice leather padfolio that opens up and has a notebook on one side and a place on the other for you to keep all your papers, and it'll zip shut. So it'll be great for all our secretaries and treasurers to be able to take to your Kiwanis meetings. So what I want you to do, I want to have a record of who is here at this meeting. So go ahead and put your name, your club name, and your title in the chat, and then any topics you would like for us to cover on future webinars. It can be on these quarterly webinars or just any type of webinar whatsoever that you would like to see that the Carolinas district holds. Go ahead and put those in the chat. I am going to keep going, but the way you get entered into
What all
that.
do you want?
I'm sorry.
What
I
all
want
do you
your
want?
name. If you see here on the screen, I want your
Okay.
name, your
Pardon me?
title, and the topics you want me to cover in the future. Real simple. All right, so we've heard that one of you is the newer. We usually, the presidents or the secretaries and treasurers tend to stay on in their positions longer than any of the other positions in Kiwanis, and I applaud those that have been in their position a long time. I also applaud those that have come on to these, what we think are daunting tasks. Club secretary does a lot, and usually they are combined as a secretary treasurer. So some education and learning resources for you. I am a person that believes that it's very hard to retain the specific details about Kiwanis that others feel that once we tell you once in 1 hour session, you're good for a year. I don't believe that to be the case. So how are you going to remember what to do when you have a question? One way is to email me. That would be down here. The right-hand side shows you the district's resources, and the left-hand side shows you Kiwanis International's resources. So one way, you can email the district office. You can call the district office, and I am happy to help you. However, there are a lot of other pieces of information that you can check out first before you have to send me an email and wait for my response. So Kiwanis International has video recordings for the president, the secretary, the treasurer, and the membership chair. They are available through this link here. You can, if you can't remember this session and this PowerPoint will be given to you this week, this coming week. So you will get that URL. But you just go to Kiwanis.org, you click the members button, and then on the left-hand side, it'll say for leaders, you click leaders, and then you click club, and it'll take you to this area. And then you click the specific role that you're looking for. So secretary, treasurer, and you'll get a full page of information for your specific role. And you can also scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page, and get these recordings, the Kiwanis-led training recordings done by Kiwanis International. Those are great just to have on in the background, maybe as you're washing the dishes or sweeping the floor, whatever, just to get that information embedded in your brain about the different roles and responsibilities. You also have a leadership guide with each role spelled out and checklists for each role. They have not printed that as a physical guide, but it is available online through that link, and I will include it for you after this call as a link in your follow-up email. You also receive CD news virtually every week, unless I'm sick or getting ready for a conference or convention. The target is for it to come out weekly, but I do promise that you will get it at least twice a month. And in CD News, it's designed for you to be able to glance through it and capture the information in about 10 minutes. But if you want a deeper dive on any subject, I provide lots of links to the information. And in CD News, I try to give you, as a club president, or I'm sorry, club secretary or treasurer, 30 days notice on things coming up. So for instance, if you've seen lately, since June, I've been putting in CD News, it's time to report your officers. Come December, January, I will be putting in there, it's time to think about filing your 990. It's due February 15th, those sorts of things. So you will find in CD News those pieces of information that have deadlines that correspond to the checklist you would find in your leadership guide. And then, of course, we are doing district webinars. These are free to all our members. And this year we're doing quite a few more. I have at least 2 set and mostly 3 set for every Tuesday and Wednesday from now until December. This first set will be intro video or webinars from all our committee chairs on all their different subjects. So we're going to have an intro for all the SLPs separately, so you can get dive deeper into the higher level of, say, what a K-Kids is or what a Key Club is. And then in the spring, in Q3, we hope to dive deeper into each of the SLPs to talk about possibly things like advisor conundrums, more of a 201 series. And then the other resource you have as a club officer is your lieutenant governor. They're there to help you. If you can't get me and you can't find the information in any of your resources, you can reach out to your lieutenant governor, and then they will find the right answer for you. So any questions before we move on resources? Okay, I don't see anybody's hands up, so I'm going to keep going. So, as I mentioned, I'm going over the treasurer's position first. So our treasurer and our secretary have different responsibilities. Obviously, the treasurer is all about the finances side. In the guidebook that Kiwanis International has, it has a list of the duties and responsibilities for the treasurer, and it's on page 38 of that guidebook. As far as this, it says 38 in the bottom right-hand corner. If you're actually looking at the PDF and want to type in the number to get to the page, it's actually on page 40, because page 1, as far as Adobe is concerned, is the cover of the manual. But the responsibilities basically include working with the secretary to coordinate and keep up the club's finances, keep up the records. The treasurer is also an officer of a club and a member of the board. And the treasurer's role cannot be combined with any other position other than the secretary. So your president should not also be your treasurer or your president-elect. This is the one position that they really request that be kept separate so that there's a check and balance within the club. And of course, the treasurer is responsible for collecting all the funds due to the club and for keeping the records of the membership fees and dues, unless that's delegated to the secretary. And it's easy to find the club treasurer resources at Kiwanis.org. Instead of going through that system I was telling you about, you can just type in Kiwanis.org/club treasurer, and that page should pull up with all the links that you need. Now, the one area it's not going to pull up for you is the specific filings you have to do for either North or South Carolina, depending on where your club is. And those specific filings are through the Secretaries of State for each of our states. So over here on the right, I've given you the website for those. What do we have to file to our Secretaries of State? In both states, we have to have a license to solicit. So if all your club's doing is service, you don't have to fill out this solicitation license, which depending on where you are, North or South Carolina, there is a fee for it. In South Carolina, it's prorated according to how much fundraising you're doing. So it runs anywhere from $60 to I think $250. And it has to be done annually to get that license. You also have to submit to them when you do your 990, your audit or review. If you are doing the 990 EZ, you have to do a specific review. They don't take the postcard confirmation. And so those are due at the same time. Again, I'm going to say I am not a club treasurer, so I'm going to stop share and open it up to the floor to any of our experienced club treasurers if they want to add anything about those filing. Greg, is there anything you would like to add?
I'm not familiar with South Carolina, but I will say that the North Carolina charitable solicitation license has a dollar threshold to it. That is, and I think it's just been increased recently. It used to be $25,000 in a year. So if your solicitations were under that, you don't have to file. If they're over that, you do.
Oh, okay. Okay, but you still do have to do the annual filing with your finances in February, even if you do have the 990 EZ.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
It tends to be the postcard.
Right. The postcard is for the IRS, but then
Right.
there's a second portion that you have
Right.
to do for the state.
State.
And if you watch the trainings that Kiwanis International does, they word that differently. They say that we have to file our incorporation yearly or every other year. And that's not what I found. I found that what you have to do yearly is that charitable solicitation license and the financial piece in February. The only time you would have to update your incorporation. You do have to be incorporated, but usually that is done when the club is formed. So if your club moves or changes their PO box, those are the types of things you would have to update for the incorporation. And for a fee, they can send you your incorporation papers in both states. Any other questions on that area? If not, man, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay, so it's talking about the pages in the leadership guide that cover each of the positions. This is page 38, where it shows you the responsibilities. It also has a list of skills that you might be looking for if you don't have a treasurer and you're trying to recruit to that position, or you're asking people in the club that might not have a financial background, but do have the knowledge to be a treasurer. And then the duties here. Some of the duties are things like attending the board meetings and providing a financial report at those board meetings. If your club has a quarterly board meeting, you would be handling it there. If it has a monthly board meeting, you would be providing a financial report at each of those meetings. That can be like a profit and loss report, or it could be more of an explanation of what has been spent and what has come in. We tend to think we need to be fancy with a profit and loss report. And if we go that way in your club, I would suggest that any new members of the board be spoken to in a private way to see if they understand how to read a profit and loss report so that they can follow along with the treasurer's report at the meeting. I understand how to read a profit and loss report, but if you have younger members on your board, which we're hoping to always get younger people in Kiwanis, they might not have ever seen a profit and loss report. So they're not going to ask the questions because they might feel like it's stupid, they're not going to say anything. So we need to make sure our board members understand the report that's given to them. And another best practice I would suggest that every board do is that the bank statements be brought to the club meeting, and another member of the board, it could be the secretary or the president, sees the bank statements and initials them monthly. Because that profit and loss report is not tied to your bank account. So a club treasurer could make it up, but they can't make up the bank statement. And there have been cases in the Carolinas district where money has been embezzled because the profit and loss reports were being faked. So best practice, your initial goes on those bank statements, or even better, more than one person has logged in to the bank statement online. So it could be the president and the treasurer, or the secretary and the treasurer, or all three. And another reason you might want to do that is we always want a check and balance as well as a backup plan. So as I was saying earlier about we don't want to be silos. What if something happens to the treasurer? What if they're in a car accident? Or all of a sudden they've had a heart attack and they're in ICU and they're the only name on the account? What happens? That you got to go to the bank, got to change, have the board of trustees meet and have minutes to say that someone else's name can be on the bank account. Why don't you just do that from the beginning and have more than one person's name on the account? Let me stop sharing and see if any of you have any other best practices that you think clubs should do around being club treasurer. Yes, Peg.
Well, one thing I mentioned, you have a chat from Tacey Burdette, a question about, can a treasurer be past president?
Yes. So they can't be the immediate past president because that person is still on the board with a vote. But it can be anyone that has served in the position of president that's no longer on the board. So they don't want any board member having the authority of treasurer other than doing secretary treasurer. And that's about a balance of power. So as a past president or the current president, in that position, you as the leader have more sway in your club, and it's a check and balance to keep it separated. So yes, they can be a past president. No, it should not be the immediate past president that's serving on the board. So if the immediate past president who's serving is the only person in your club that could be the club treasurer, they could become the club treasurer. They could be appointed by the president or elected by the club, however your bylaws are set up. And then the most immediate past president after them, who's willing to come back to the board, would fill the position on the board of immediate past president. Does that make sense? Good.
A couple of things. We have at least one additional member on our board who has signature authority on our checking account, both of them. The other thing is we do have an internal audit that's not on the board, a member of our club who has accounting, CPA experience that does review our records.
Good.
And also at each of our board meetings for the financial report, however you do it, we do provide to the board now a list of the checks that are written each
Oh.
month. So there's a cross check against who the money's going to and what it's for, etc.
Good.
Which
So
is
you take that
additional
bank statement that
coverage.
shows the pictures
Yeah.
of the checks.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. And it makes it easier for people that might not understand the P&L. I mean, you can see physically in front of you what those expenses were. That's a good idea. You could also provide a link to the PDF if you were holding those online, if you were doing a Zoom, which would show those as well.
Well, we also have our, we use QuickBooks, but we have an online program. So we have at least the president and one other financial person who have access to look at the online accounting, which
Good.
is further check.
Yes, that's good. And which QuickBooks has the capability of doing the online version. Yeah. Do any, I am not an expert with, we use QuickBooks here at the district office, but it does have a cost. I know you can get it cheaper if you do have a foundation, right, Peg?
Yes, you can through TechSoup. They will
TechSoup.
yeah.
But
And
if
it-
any of you use any other type of software that you want to share, you can put that in the chat for our group. If your club is looking for financial software to use to keep up with the books. I find QuickBooks to be very easy once you've set up your line item. Okay, if there aren't any other questions. As Peg said, part of the responsibility of the club every year is actually to have an annual audit / review. So you should have someone, hopefully not on the board, but in your club that has a financial background, do a check and balance and do a review of your books. If you can't find someone in your club, it can be outside of your club, or you definitely can hire an accountant. It just costs quite a bit of money. So if there's nothing further, we're going to move on. But if I'm running the slides and you have a question, you can just pipe up because I can't see you all while I'm running the slides. So feel free to interrupt me at any point, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what we're talking about in a moment. All right, we did questions. Moving on, Club Secretary is in the same leadership guidebook. So if you download the guidebook, Kiwanis feels no one should be in that silo I was mentioning. So you can see the duties and responsibilities of the president, secretary, treasurer, and membership chair. So the club secretary section starts on page 32. Again, if you enter 32, it's going to give you two pages previous to that. So you would enter 34 if you were typing it in the in Adobe to get to it, or if you scroll down till you look, it says page 32 in the guide. But so how many of you understand we can list what the club secretary's role is? Yes, it's taking minutes. Yes, it's keeping the records. Yes, it's reminding the president about what's coming up and what needs to be done. But really, it's whatever nobody else is doing, unfortunately. How many, I'm going to stop the screen. How many of you, just with a raise of hand, have served as a secretary or treasurer for more than 5 years? Anybody? We've got Jeff. Okay. How many of you are in this role for the first year? Oh, Craig, are you going to be a secretary?
Yeah, I told him to put the interim title on it because the intent is that I will serve until we find another qualified person within the club who's willing to take on the responsibilities. That's not been an easy task so far.
Well, and another, I hear you. It's not an easy task because everyone knows it's work. The secretary's job is work, and I applaud you all for taking it on. You can also work to have a secretary and an assistant secretary, so you can split the role. Perhaps some people like taking minutes and the other people like handling the attendance or doing the monthly report, so you can split it into two. Any hints or tricks or pieces of advice those that have been in the position a little longer would like to give to those that have just started? I like to ask the question, if you were looking back at yourself when you started the role as club secretary, what do you wish you knew that you know now? Nan, you're laughing. Stay away, is that?
Pardon?
Do my reports better.
Do your reports better. I would say for me, it would be, I would have an easy way. If it were for younger members, I would have a Google Sheet with a link to it with a QR code that the members could click on and enter their club service hours on their phone. Or I would have a clipboard to go around and have the service hour time listed every week, so people remember to write it down, because people forget to give you their service hours. That would be one I would do.
That's
would
a great
also-
idea.
Yeah, you can also have it to bring your computer with you to the meeting and enter information into the monthly report right when you're doing it, because you can save it and go back and change the information. So there's nothing like the present moment to get something done. You can enter that attendance information that week and then come back and do the next week right then. So when you could submit that report almost immediately. Yes, Nan.
I have a fillable service hour report form, and I email it to each member and have them return it to me probably by the 8th or the 9th of each month, so that I can
Oh, nice. So
compile
you
it.
email it out to everyone to remind them, and then they send it back.
Yeah, and it also contains information about where they volunteered, what they did, and if they were successful in obtaining some in-kind donations, or if they donated something. Yeah.
So does that form go straight into a Google Sheet, or do you download it and compile the
Well,
data?
I'm a little old school, so I print it out and make a master sheet and compile the information that way.
Okay. Maybe on one of our future quarterly calls, I can show you how to create a Google form where once they enter it, you could say, have the month listed, they enter their name, and then you write those questions there, and it puts it into an Excel spreadsheet for you immediately.
Oh.
So, and it's very simple to do. So we'll do that on a future call, make it easier on all of y'all. My old boss used to say, Leah, work smarter, not harder.
Leah, one of the things I've noticed, not being secretary, but one of the questions I get a lot in CLE and other places is, why are we doing this anyway with service hours? Who cares? And I think it's important to explain to people that there are multiple uses of that information. We're just not throwing it into a black hole at Kiwanis International. where, it's useful to the clubs for their fundraising, to be able to describe to their community how their service has had an impact. There is a formula for calculating the value of volunteer service hours, and you can put a dollar value to that you can use when you go out to talk to other agencies or do your PR. There are a lot of different things that you can use that number for if you have it. And that, I think, a little more knowledge of what the uses of that would be could help us improve the level of reporting we get on those, because we don't get 100% of the clubs reporting their service hours.
Good point, Greg. And Nan, do
Yeah,
you have
there's
your
a-
script with you? Can you share what you sent me, or would you like me to read it?
Yeah, there's a website for an organization called Independent Sector, and they calculate the value of a volunteer, the average value of a volunteer hour in dollars and cents by state and by nation. So, for instance, if you served 100 hours in a calendar year, I think in North Carolina, it's something like $25.36. I mean, it's an odd number, but you multiply that by 100, and that's basically your in-kind donation to the community because of the volunteer work that you did. The other part of it is the main reason that Kiwanis International wants to collect the information from us is it helps them prepare their 990. And now their 990 is probably, I don't know, 50, 60 pages long, but it helped by compiling all that information. It helps the international organization.
Yes, and Nan's being humble. She has written this very eloquent piece that I'm going to read to you about both finances and service hours that puts it into perspective. So I'm going to read it to you, and I will include it in a link for this final presentation so you can share it with your board or with members about why are we submitting this information. So she says, in the business world, we have large mega corporations that sell their brand to local entrepreneurs. These local entrepreneurs then become franchises of the mega corporation. Think Taco Bell, Burger King, Wendy's. Also think about local nonprofit organizations that carry on the name and mission of a much larger nonprofit organization, like the American Red Cross, Scouting America, Girl Scouts, Habitat for Humanity, Rotary, United Way, Rotary, Kiwanis. We and our Kiwanis clubs are a franchise of Kiwanis International. They hold the 501c4 designation, and we in Kiwanis clubs are a subsidiary of that franchise. These groups of mega business and nonprofit organizations submit the data in their IRS 990s that are a compilation of their own data and that of their subsidiaries. Monthly, these subsidiaries submit reports of their program and financial activities to their respective mega corporations and nonprofit organization headquarters that paint a true picture of their brands and the impact their brands have on the communities in which the subsidiary is located. And then on to monthly service hours. So she has written a very eloquent piece about, this is the question I always get, and it's very controversial. And I always give the IRS answer, but she has the other side of it, and I appreciate it. So I'm going to read it to you. So my answer is, when people ask me, what are service hours? I say, it's the service that's hands-on that you do in the community. It is not the administrative hours. They are separate. However, some would say that only hours spent providing service to children and the community should count. So that was the position I gave you. That the background service time spent in arranging for the service to children and the community should not. Some would say that if we are permitted to utilize funds from the service account to pay the registration fees for, say, the mid-year conference and the district convention or the international convention, where we learn about club administration as well as the service projects, then we should be able to count all of the hours spent in administration and service each month, all time spent on club business. She shares this second opinion based upon her many decades in public administration, both as a paid staff and as volunteer. Volunteers, aka club members, like to know that their service counts. Also interested are potential funders who want to know how many members you have, what volunteers hours they perform, and how many hours they serve. So I agree with her in that sense that we don't want to make our members mad. And yes, they're giving their time to do this, and that is volunteers. So I think we're going to move forward with her idea, but then what I'm going to do is create a separate form to pull the numbers of our community service hours to keep them separate for specific awards, like the Anna Mae Smith Award, which covers community service per member. And that way, it's a happy win for everyone. We can include all those hours. It encourages people to serve in a club capacity, and we can still find the hours that are just community service driven. Do you guys have any questions about what service hours are? Or did that clear it up? That cleared it up, good.
So I have a hand-me-down sheet, and I can't think of one, but I have like service hours and volunteer hours that he tracks from Hope Mills. I haven't actually gotten into the website yet. They pulled me from the chamber, so I'm trying to just fill in. But are there two different volunteer brackets? I know you just kind of went over that, but like it's just all the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, so basically we're gonna finalize everything, and then those that want to stay on longer, we can go through the monthly report and get specific questions asked. But they have an area with the monthly report where you can list all of the projects that you have and then the service hours that were given to them, or you can just put in a total, depending on how you prefer to do the report. So if you just do the total, you're going to include all those administrative hours. So, which include you as club secretary or you as club treasurer creating the reports. Those are service hours as far as the administrative hours are concerned. Now, what I will be doing is creating an application for our Anna Mae Smith Award, where you would just enter the total community service hours that you've done and what those projects were. So I can look at that and then your official number to see your number of service hours per member for that award that we give out at mid-year. And that way it's a happy compromise for everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen to see what else I put down for secretary because my ADHD. Okay, so this page 34 shows you the duties and responsibilities, but it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. God love our club secretaries that keep us afloat. I'd say a lot of it is being very polite and reminding the president of what they're supposed to be doing, as well as recording the hours. Okay, so I have a picture here to remind me to go on to the website, to the secretary dashboard. And while I pull that up, before I go there, we have 12 minutes left. I wondered if anyone had any other questions. And I will say, if you are not interested in looking at the secretary's dashboard or completing a report, you are welcome to leave. If you want us to do that, we will. I will be here as long as you guys have questions. So, I'm going to take you through the dashboard and the monthly report. I'm going to show you where bills are, where once you add a member, you can get a bill and pay it immediately or download the invoice. You don't have to wait for KI to mail it to you. We're going to go through all of that, but that takes time. So you're welcome to stay on as long as you want. You're welcome to leave. You have now gotten the official training done for the points you need to say you attended CLE as a secretary or treasurer for the Distinguished Club Award for 2024-25. I will say I'm going to put a plug in for all the webinars we have coming up. You can find those on our website and in CD News. For signing up for this class, you're going to get a reminder the day before and the day of each of those webinars. And I think what I'm going to do in that reminder is just list all the different webinars and the dates of them so you can share them with your club members. Everyone has to sign up their self to get the link to the webinar. But once you sign up, you're signed up for the year. And all of our webinars are free. So that being said, I'm going to pull up the website. Actually, I should check the chat and see. Okay. Share. All right. Are you guys seeing the Kiwanis International website? Yes, good.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is where you go as club secretary to log in. You would go over here to the members. And when you go to members, you click this button here, Access Kiwanis Connect Online Reporting. Now, when I was showing you the information for the different webinars, it's right here. You click for leaders and it takes you to those specific spots. But for the monthly report and the secretary dashboard, you would click Access Kiwanis Connect Online Reporting. I have already in the system. I'm going to show you. Nan has been nice enough to let me use her. So I'm going to search for Nan and impersonate her. Maybe if it's going to let me. There we go. Okay, so once you log into the system, I'm trying to get you guys moved out of my way. There we go. It brings you to this page with your name, your club's name, your member ID, and then some links here where you can edit your picture and your profile and see if you've done your background check for Kiwanis International. Down the side here, you have several icons. The one we are going to focus on today is the secretary dashboard. The other ones that are great are the club bylaws. If your club has submitted bylaws to KI, you have them here. They're up on their server, and you always have a copy of them. The president also has a club bylaws icon as well. You have access to the members where you can add or delete members, but you cannot change a member's name anymore. That has to go through member services. So I'm going to click on the secretary dashboard for us to go through tonight. So,
Question if I can.
yes, ma'am.
As the treasurer, I have access, or a treasurer has access to the finances as well.
Yes.
So for us, I now go in and I pay any bills that come up on the dashboard for the club. So the secretary doesn't have to do that, correct?
Correct. You can,
Okay.
yes. So once the secretary adds a member, when you can go in, and then if there were any outstanding invoices, you would have clicked the finances tab, Peg, and they would be right here. There you could download them and pay them. And you can even pay with a debit card or a credit card if you so choose. Or you can print the invoice and mail it in with a check.
Got it.
And it is best to look there, or club secretaries, if you are not the treasurer. Once you add a member, it would be nice to go ahead and email the club treasurer so they have a visual reminder to pay those invoices. They might not know that you've added those members in there. So that would be a nice thing to do. Right to the dashboard. Okay. So your dashboard is going to show your club name. This is what's called your key number. Kiwanis International asks for that sometimes, especially on things like delegate certification forms. And it just basically means back in the day when we used what was called Access, which is a database data management system, there was a column for a number that would be assigned to each specific entity, and they called it a key number. So that's why this is called a key number. And we've just kept the K for key number, and then you have a 5-digit number. So these go up according to when you were built. So in the Carolinas, we have some of the first clubs ever built in the world. So Asheville, I believe, is like number 23 in all of the world. So their key number is K00023. So North Brunswick was the 18,312th Kiwanis club ever built. The little knowledge that people don't know. That doesn't mean we have 18,312 in existence, but that means we've built that many when North Brunswick became a club. Okay, so then it gives you your rank in the district at the moment. So North Brunswick has 23 members on file right now, and they're ranked 30 out of 139. That number is a little high. We're actually at 134 clubs. They keep clubs in the system until the International Board of Trustees approves their disbanding. So a club may have disbanded in September of 2023 and been at 0 as of September 30th, but the board didn't meet until October. And so they were officially a club in October, and they're still in the ranking. So our number is actually 134 instead of 139 at the moment. So this is close, but not perfect. Then we have the club elections. This is what my goal is to have 100% here by the end of the month. We are not there yet, but the way you handle adding your club officers is you change the year to 2024-25, and then you just add them in. You hit this add button, and when you do that, all you have to do is enter their last name, and it will auto-populate. And then it just automatically submits it. It's very quick and easy. We want 23, 24. So this should show your current list of officers. If you have overwritten the current list because you didn't know to change this year, you can go back in there, and whatever you put in currently will overwrite the other information. It gives you your charter date, your division number. This one's important. I get that question all the time, asking what division am I in? And the Carolinas is considered district K04. So we're the 4th district in the world. I think they go in order from the Northeast up on the East Coast, down Southeast, and then across. Yeah, you can enter your club signature project, and we're going to be working on signature project database here soon at the district level. So if you haven't entered one, this would be a great thing to enter soon so that we can use and promote different club signature projects for other clubs to help them figure out what they want to do. You can list your website and your Facebook page. We use that on our website so people can go and find you. Specifically like your lieutenant governor or anyone interested in perhaps the public coming to see you and wanting to learn about you first. And then down here at the bottom, it will list your service leadership programs. And why is this important? It's important because if our advisors don't have their background checks done, then they will not be, you can't add them to the list currently. And once it's been over 90 days, they will tell the school system to advise that person not attending and not being allowed into the school. So it's important to make sure these background checks are kept up to date. I have suggested to Kiwanis International that if these do expire, that they also let the club president know, not just the school system, because 9 times out of 10, it was just a lack of awareness that it needed to be done, rather than someone willfully not completing the background check. They do
Question.
send, yes.
Okay, since we're talking about background checks, that was one that I was gonna ask you real quick. Okay, so on the secretary's dashboard, will
Yes.
it give the secretary a list of whose background checks are coming up that's due or do you know what I'm saying? Does it can we generate a list that would tell us who's coming up due or who's about ready to go expired?
Yes. So you see here, I click the members button,
Correct.
Brian, up here on the left-hand side, and it brought up the list of members in the club, and it says when their background check
Gotcha.
expires.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
And if
Perfect.
it's currently expired. So when it is currently expired, the secretary can email a link to that person to submit it.
Gotcha. All right. Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Now, I don't know, I would have to ask Nan. I don't know that you can download this with the background check listed. When you download your membership roster, do you know if it lists the date of?
No, it does not.
Yes, you have to do it from the dashboard.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good question, Brian. So going back to the dashboard. It also, we want you to keep your meeting location up to date as possible, because we use this information with the governor and others that we have a map of the Carolinas of all our clubs, and we use this to pin where each of our clubs is. So we have a full picture of what the district looks like. Okay, so next I'm going to do monthly report. Any questions other than Brian's about background checks on what I showed you for the dashboard before we move on?
Leah, are you going to show us how to enter a new member?
I can, yes. So you go to members and then you click add new member right here over on the right.
Okay.
You see that, Boyd?
Yep.
So I don't want to do it because I don't want to add a member. But another question I frequently get on adding a new member is, what do you do if they're a corporate member? And what you want to do in that case is in the name slot, you want to put the corporation's name. And then in the first slot of for the address, it gives you two spots for first line for an address and a second line for an address. That first line is where you would put the person that the company has designated as their representative, and then the address below that, so that if they change their appointed person, you would just be changing the address line, so they aren't charged a new member fee.
Okay, so
That makes sense.
if you have someone who was a former Key Club member and they are
Good question.
20 years
They're
old.
coming in.
Okay, so
There's
that
a
the
spot
portal?
there that's not a corporate member, but there's a spot when you add a new member, when you continue, it'll ask you if they were a former SLP member, and you check that box And then Kiwanis International on the backside looks at that and they update the system to add them so they are not charged that first 2 years dues. And that only takes effect if they haven't done that for another club. So they can't have been a member of another Kiwanis club and use that and then join your club. They can't use it twice, only
Okay.
once.
So where it says corporate, honorary, satellite, and it says former, does that former mean former Key Club?
No, that means former members in your club.
Oh. So this is somebody who left and is coming back.
No, these are people that are no longer members in your club, but you have a list of them so that, say you want to get in touch with them, you're doing like a Operation Bring Them Back, or this is a listing of people that are no longer in your club, boy,
Okay.
that you might want to contact. So it has the last known data that you entered on them. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in
Now,
order to see this dashboard, your name has to actually be in the database as the secretary. Is that
yes,
correct?
that is correct. Or assistant secretary. Any other questions on the dashboard before I go into a monthly report? We're going to look at a monthly report, answer any questions you guys have, and that will be the end of this session. If you have any ideas that pop up in your mind after we do this monthly report, you can send it my way and I will keep it on our tally sheet for our next quarterly webinar on the subject. Let's go to the monthly report. I will also say on that positional page on Kiwanis International website, they have a document that will show you how to log in and do these reports. But I always feel it's good to go through it live and answer your questions live. And then you can go back and refer to that, or you can watch this webinar again about how to log in and how to do your report. So you can see Nan is currently up to date on all her reports. The last one she has to go is September. Nan, I'm not going to enter information. I'm just going to pull it up if that's okay with you. So you click the go button and it's in 4 different sections currently. As we go through this is going to be for this year, the 24-25 Kiwanis year. In June 2025, they plan to publish Engage and get us starting to use Engage. So this is going to work until that takes over, and then we're all going to have to learn that together. But this is going to work for the next 6 months, and they keep telling me it's going to start. So while they say June, I'm not holding my breath because I've been holding it long enough. But anyway, the first section is inspiration and engagement. Sometimes you're going to have extra questions in each section depending on if KI has something specific to the month. I have not been putting questions in. If I have something, I do a link through CD News and do a Google Sheet. Just because I find better, more engagement through CD News than I do the monthly report system. But so the first section you have here is your attendance. So as I was saying, you can take this to your meetings, and at the end of the meeting, you can see how many people attended, and you can go ahead and enter it right then and there, and it'll save it. And then you can come back next week and add more. So you can go into this report multiple times in the month. You don't have to wait until the end to enter this information. It will save what you've put in. But it wants you to do your meeting attendance for each meeting, your guests, makeups. Does everybody understand what a makeup is? Makeups are like in Kiwanis, if you can't attend the meeting, but you did a service project, or you went to your Key Club meeting or any service leadership program meeting, or you did an inter club. Those count as makeups. Also, most people don't know, if you're on jury duty, that's considered a makeup. You cannot be held accountable for not being at your meeting for doing your civic duty. And then you have a place to add your meeting program. Then we have our interclub activity. We have a whole document that goes into what an interclub is, but it's anywhere between 2 to 4 people from your club, depending on your club size, attending another club in either your division or another division, or attending an SLP meeting. Those are called interclubs. And we use this information that you added into this section for our interclub patches and our one big interclub award of the year for the club that does the most interclubs. And then this is one of those general questions that they don't ask every month, but it's asking if you use the ACE tools this month, and it gives you a link to those tools so you can find out what they are. And then it will ask you annually certain questions. So these were here. Oh, it looks like Nan's filling out the report as we're going. Does your club conduct a service project in different areas? What's your goal for new members? How are you doing? What social media you're on? So these are things that you answer. I think if you answer it once, it'll keep it filled in each month. Is that right, Nan? Yeah. If you've been contacted by someone at the division or district level, have you done your audit for the year? Have you done your 990? And do you do the 2 for 2? And so when you're finished, you hit save. And then it will, did it save it?
What is 2 for 2?
Oh, good question. 2 for 2 is a membership incentive, I would say you would call it, where if you go to the membership section of Kiwanis International's page, it talks about having 2 of your members work towards targeting and going to visit to recruit 2 new people. And they have a 4-page document on how you can do that. So I don't know why it's not going to the next. Since I didn't enter information, I'm just going to click the service tab for our next area. So Kiwanis International has a lot of programs that they promote. And this section is for you to click the ones that you're doing. And it also has this button here. If at the beginning, I'll show you, you can import your monthly activities from a spreadsheet that you can do separately from here, and it'll import all the information here, or you can just enter it specifically every month, the total number of projects you did, any that you want to highlight, your total number of service hours, who was involved, how many of your SLP
one of the
members
check boxes
attended.
up at the top for the projects was other. If you click on the other, does it bring up a screen where you can enter what they are? Or is
Yes.
it? Okay.
See that?
Yep. Got it.
But you can also, Greg, on the main screen, there's this blue button that says monthly activities tracker, and
Yes.
you can add all of your activities here. So say you do or Meals on Wheels every month. You can add that so that you have pretty much a checklist for yourself of what you're supposed to remember to add service hours for.
Does that repeat month to month, or do you have to enter it every month?
No, I believe once you've added it, it shows here for that month, for like all the months.
Okay.
I'm going back down here. So once you hit go, when you're editing it, like I was saying, is for you to go back in and do more, you just hit the pencil button and go to the section you're interested in. So we're on service right now. And this button, import monthly activities, corresponds to that blue button I just showed you on the front. And it would enter that information here. It's not, you would still have to highlight a service project should you wish right here.
One other question then on that total number of projects completed this month. We have virtually all of our service projects are ongoing. They don't have they have a start date, but for a lot of them, they may have been years ago.
No, they're not. They don't.
End date.
No, you're thinking too hard about when their word. They mean that you did this month.
Okay, so it's not ones that are completed, it's ones that you log time in.
Yes, correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't mean this is the last time you did it. Like, kind of like sometimes you have only once a fundraiser. This is all the service projects you did this month, is what they mean.
Got it.
Okay. And then they want a total number of service hours. And of course, we're back to Nan's idea. If you want to include those administrative hours, you're going to ignore that line right there. And this is where you would put the total number of service hours.
Okay.
They want to know how many members were involved in those projects for the month and how many SLP members were involved. Does everybody understand what an SLP is? A service leadership program. If you don't, type up now and I will go through them. Okay, keep going. They want to know if any non-members were part of those service projects. And I like this number. This is a hard one to do, but they would like you to estimate the number of youth served by those projects that you did. So say you are, it's easy if you're doing Terrific Kids because you know how many certificates you gave. But it might not be so easy if you're working with a family center that houses abused women and children. You would have to get from them the number of children that they have at the time. Or you could add here the total number of all, if your Key Club advisor has been going to the meeting and you're including those hours, you're going to include there all the number of members of the entire club in that. But this is going to be up to your discretion what you put as the total number of youth served.
A quick question is, for example, we have a reading program in the elementary school, first grade. They meet every week, once a day, but our members may meet with the same child each week for the hour. So do you call that child once per month or 4 times per month?
So it would be once because you're still serving that one child, but it would be 4 hours.
Okay, yeah, the hours are, it's how many children, so it'd be one child.
Yeah, one child.
Okay.
Yeah, you just invested more time in the one child. Yeah. Any other questions about this service part before I move on? Okay, Image. This is all about what marketing you guys are doing. Once you, it seems daunting in the beginning, but once you start doing this form monthly, you'll get used to what they're asking you. You know, it's very quick to check them off. The hardest part is getting all the service entered and the fundraising entered. But it's asking specific areas that you've marketed towards and perhaps done recognition and awards programs. And then financial. It's going to ask what kind of fundraising you did and who you supported in your fundraising hours, specific to areas that Kiwanis International partners with, as well as the money raised and donated. And I think if we keep going down here far enough, this is probably the one you're going to use the most, this add other monetary contribution, to where whatever your service hours went to that is a local type of place other than one of Kiwanis International's choices. So your funds raised and your funds donated might not be in the same month. You're just going to add them when you do them. So say you have a pancake breakfast and you raised $20,000 in September, you're going to add it to the September report. But if you donated in October, you're going to add that to the October report. Does that make sense? They might not come in the same month. And then they have a help button. Now, with this help button, you can call their number and you leave a voicemail. You can email their helpline. And these go to Kiwanis International. But you can also send, let's see if I can find it. But if you enter something here, it comes to me at the district office. And it puts your name and your club name for me, which is very helpful. Most of the time I get emails from y'all and you think I'm your best friend, and I'm going to know who Peggy Sue is without any other information. So it does help if you email me to send me your club name and your title, because there are 4,000 of you that I help. So I'm going to stop my share. All right, we're at 8:21. Are there any other questions y'all might have around starting the monthly reports or doing something on the Secretary dashboard that I can help you with this evening? If not, I really appreciate your time. Any other questions I'm happy to help with? It's best for you to email me rather than call. I am on about 3 Zoom calls a day now.
Crazy.
And doing many other things and trying to meet deadlines. So please, if you need something from me, my first preference is an email. If you do need to call, and with that email, I do require 24 to 48 hours to at least respond. Usually if it's an easy answer, I can respond in that time. If it's a difficult answer, it might take me longer. And it does take me longer when we're closer to conferences and conventions, because I'm also planning to oversee an entire conference or convention. And that, I will say, that's when y'all remember who I am. And so as we get closer to those conferences and conventions, the emails start to rise. So currently, when it's a slow time, I get 10 to 15 emails from y'all an hour. When we get closer to those conferences and conventions, I get about 20 to 30 an hour. So it can be a little crazy for me. If you do call, please state if it's an emergency. Please tell me your name and what you are looking for and what your club name is. You definitely can leave me a message that says, I want to pick your brain. Please call me back when you have a moment. I'm going to tell you, I don't have any moments. I literally don't have any moments. So unless you tell me specifically what you're looking for, the priority you're going to have by leaving that type of message is low. Not because I don't want to talk to you, but because 15 other things have happened and I'll forget to call you back. So again, email is best. Phone calls are good if it's a super emergency, and you will have to tell me that on the phone call. And again, if you can give me at least 1 business day to get back to you, that really helps. I get a lot of, I am going to my meeting in 30 minutes. and I need XYZ. And while I really want to help y'all out, that's not a window I can work with. So 24 hours is best, at least. But I am here and I'm happy to help. And if you can't get a hold of me, you can always try your lieutenant governor. So with that said, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all you guys do to make our Carolinas the great place that it is. And I really appreciate all the time you give us. Have a great
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Leah.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good
Night.
night.
Good night.
Good night, Annie. Thank you so much for that information, Nan.
Thank you for presenting it.